Hello, my name is Gonzalo Arias. I'm the International Cooperation and Taxation Director. I had the opportunity to write this chapter with Anarela Calderoni. She is part of the CIAT staff and is International Tax Advisor in my directorate. In this chapter, we address the suitability of BEPS initiative in developing countries with emphasis on Latin American and Caribbean countries. Basically, BEPS initiative objectives are to reduce tax evasion and avoidance in cross-border transactions that usually carry on by multinational enterprises. The taxation of multinational enterprises should represent a big percentage of the total tax collection in LAC countries and are key to mobilize domestic resource. However, the situation is critical because the tax gap calculated for corporate income tax is higher than the tax gap calculated for other taxes. For example, according to ICLAC, the tax gap range for corporate income tax in Latin American countries range from 20 to 80% approximately. So there is a space to generate additional tax resources from this category of taxpayers. Additionally, Action 1 of BEPS constitutes an opportunity in crisis times. It promotes mechanisms to tax indirect taxes generated by companies from the digital economy that operate in different jurisdictions without physical presence. It constitutes a new source of tax income for developing countries, especially in the current international context, where some digital business increase significantly their sales. In particular, the compliance of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda depends in a big proportion on the quality and efficiency of the public expenditures. For example, goals as end of poverty, zero hunger, health and wellness, quality education. BEPS could improve the capacity of developing countries to increase revenues and consequently their budgets to achieve the mentioned goals. However, BEPS also could have impact in the goals 8 and 9, for example, to promote economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. The adoption of Action 5 recommendations and other related initiatives from the Global Forum on Tax Transparency and Exchange of Information facilitate the attraction of genuine foreign direct investment and the international commerce, avoiding sanctions from the international community. For example, eligibility for tenders of countries, withholding taxes, risk level of taxpayers that have transactions with non-transparent jurisdictions. BEPS can reduce inequality among local business and international business that operate in the same economic sector. It could have relation with the goal number 10. I believe that there is an impact in the goal number 16 that promotes solid institutions. I guess that BEPS is key to strengthen the capacity of Ministry of Finance and tax administrations in several areas. For example, certainty, efficiency, control capacity, risk management. Finally, I believe that there is an impact in the goal number 17, alliance to achieve objectives. BEPS initiative is precisely an international alliance to reduce the base erosion and the profit shifting, which objective is to implement a consistent global strategy based in international cooperation. To implement BEPS recommendation is not easy. Most of the BEPS recommendation regards with new practices for developing countries that require human and material resources. In my opinion, to adopt BEPS recommendation, is it necessary to follow some steps? First, to understand BEPS. Second, to assess BEPS actions requirements versus available capacity and resources. Third, to motivate political will. Fourth, it is complex to prioritize BEPS actions. Then, is it complex also to implement BEPS actions? And finally, it is necessary to prepare teams inside the Ministry of Finance and the Tax Administration to discuss new BEPS recommendations in international forums. During the process of writing the chapter, we reaffirmed our idea about the need to generate tools to facilitate developing countries the execution of the mentioned steps. For example, CIAT, in collaboration with partners, is currently developing tools VAT, for example, we are working on the tool on VAT and digital economy, the toolkit with the OECD, World Bank, and the IDB. We develop an IT tool or system to collect the VAT in the digital economy. It's a work founded by the Norway Cooperation and developed by SIAT. We are working on a toolkit on dispute resolution and prevention mechanisms with the Tribute Foundation, IDB, and Eurosocial. We are working with the Leiden University on the General Anti-Avoidance Rules toolkit. We have a manual on tax court. We work with AIFA, SIAT, TAT Panama, and the tax administration from Spain. We have a toolkit on public information and a tool on public information called DEEP, and a database of tax planning. We are working with the Maastricht University and GIZ, and a database on implementation of BEPS in SIAT member countries. This kind of toolkit facilitates countries or developing countries to make decisions on the implementation of BEPS. I also would like to stress that last year we published a transfer pricing cocktail for developing countries jointly with GIZ. I guess that this proposal is an opportunity to flexibilize BEPS action plan and to simplify recommendations to achieve the same effect as the BEPS recommendation in line with the main principles. We also issue a risk assessment manual with the GIZ, IMF, IDB, Eurosocial that will strengthen tax administration processes to identify and prevent compliance risk. We also stress the relevance of tools elaborated by the collaboration platform like the TP Comparable Toolkit and OECD Tax Risk Evaluation and Assessment Tool and the CTS Common Transmission Systems. I guess that we have to offer countries more tools, not just technical assistance and training, also tools to facilitate the implementation of the base erosion and profit shifting recommendations.
We concluded that fast acting and tangible results is what's necessary. For example, the collection of additional tax resources by countries. This is hard because you have to balance between short and long-term policy objectives, especially now that there is a higher demand on resources with COVID and countries needing to reconstruct public finances. It's hard to do this, but one potential opportunity that we saw would be for the collection of VAT on digital transactions. This would not increase the tax burden on traditional businesses. You'd have to require digital companies to register to declare their transactions in market jurisdictions, and this could attempt to overcome the ages-old problem that we've been dealing with of having no physical presence. Then another challenge apart from this one is how to generate more of an impact with the BEPS implementation in developing countries. So in order to do this, this ties into the research part of the question. I think we'd need to study more on how to help countries decide which action is more important and make a plan for implementing that action. We'd need research on how to flexibilize some of the BEPS recommendations to increase their applicability in developing countries. For example, this SIAT transfer pricing cocktail, which helps to facilitate some key transfer pricing issues and could potentially help implement BEPS actions 8 to 10 recommendations. And then lastly, research on how to simplify BEPS proposals, especially future proposals. This is necessary to increase understanding, to help developing countries be prepared to formulate and defend their positions when they show up at international forums, such as the Inclusive Framework or others.